Welcome to The Creative Influencer, where we discuss all things creative with an emphasis on influencers. The Creative Influencer is hosted by John Pfeiffer. John is an entertainment attorney in Santa Monica, California, who represents influencers and other creatives.
This is the 100th episode of the Creative Influencer Podcast. It's hard to believe that we're already on our 100th episode. As you know, we've adopted a broad definition to what it means to be an influencer on this podcast and have interviewed influencers of many shapes and forms. We wanted to take this moment to look back at some of the highlights of the past 4 seasons. Here is a top 10 list of the most interesting moments from the past 100 episodes. Number 10, Greg Goodrich, our very first guest on episode 1, season 1, was Greg Goodrich. Greg was the head of digital talent at UTA, and his interview is our number 10 moment. Greg is also the co-creator of Lonely Girl 15, YouTube's first big hit. In his interview, Greg shared a detailed account about the story behind creating the show and how its success impacted the YouTube we know today, which we get a glimpse of in this clip. Well, and then to set the scene, just to put this in context of the time.
Sure.
YouTube, and I had to do research on this, YouTube launched in the sense of they got registered the domain name and the trademark on Valentine's Day 2005.
Okay.
In May, the beta launched. In December, it went live to the public.
Yep.
And in June, there was a video that was posted called what?
Lonely Girl 15.
What is Lonely Girl 15?
So around that time period, I was a young lawyer at a firm that did a lot of copyright law, copyright litigation for the Motion Picture Association and record labels, and paying a lot of attention to these new platforms that were allowing people to upload content. And so myself and a friend of mine, this guy named Miles Beckett, who was a doctor, we were looking on YouTube, looking at MySpace, seeing what was out there. We both hated our jobs. He hated being a doctor. I hated being a lawyer, and we're trying to figure out what to do next. And so saw this platform of YouTube where people were creating their own accounts and uploading videos. Half of the people on YouTube were basically stealing clips from television and uploading them as their YouTube channels.
Right.
Being a copyright lawyer, knew that was not a career for me. The other half were kind of teenagers turning on a camera, either lip-syncing songs or telling funny stories or talking about their life, doing what we now call video blogs. And we had the idea of, wow, as we're watching it, what if one of these people that we're watching, who's telling us kind of their story every day, was all make-believe, and they were kind of layering this narrative in front of us.
So you had this discussion before...
Yeah, we had this discussion
Spoiler alert, before it ever launched.
In February or March of 2006, so about 3 months after people started uploading YouTube videos.
And did you have any reason to believe at that point that any of the videos that were already up were just fake?
No, we thought they were all real kids. It was definitely more just like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if you're watching one of these people and then something insane started happening in their life and you'd have no reason to, know one way or the other, and maybe you could help because it was an interactive platform. And so we're like, that was the light bulb. We're like,
so you're sitting having this discussion, and then what did you do next?
We started basically putting the idea together. So we, wrote a little treatment of, what the story would be, what the characters would be. We kind of put a 3-month story arc together. There was another guy named Mesh Flinders who did it with us as well, who, had some screenwriting background. Then we started doing some of the business stuff. So we, put contracts together, did a casting for actors and actresses.
Now, how did you do casting for actors and actresses if they couldn't talk about it?
We made up a fake independent film called The Children of Anchor Cove. And we went on all the casting websites where, independent actors are looking. And we said, indie film, super low budget, but then we had requirements of no IMDb credits, no, you couldn't be a prolific actor. We wanted, completely unknowns.
What about, could they be on, at that point it was MySpace, could they be on social media?
We said, we didn't say no in the description, but if they came in and they showed us that they had, we would ask them, and if they had a MySpace page that had any more than, 10 or 20 friends, they were disqualified.
Okay.
Had to be somebody who could remain anonymous.
So you had casting?
Yep.
How many people did you cast?
Well, we saw about 50 actors and 50 actresses. Needless to say, they were not the greatest 50 actors and actresses because the requirement is no credits. And, needle in a haystack, this girl, Jessica Rose, came in the room. She had just moved here from New Zealand. She was homeschooled in New Zealand. She came over to the U.S. to do makeup. She worked on, I think, one of the Lord of the Rings movies as just like a total extra assistant to somebody and got the bug. Came out here, went to acting school, saw posting for it. No friends, no social media, no credits, any of this stuff. And then we saw an actor, a guy named Yusuf Abu Taleb, who also, was a good fit for the character and also had the same, criteria of not a very popular dude.
That would be a good thing.
Yes, right.
And then on July 4th, there was a post, My Parents
Suck, yeah.
Tell me about that post.
So the kind of the story at that point was there was Bree. She was homeschooled. She kind of lived in somewhere in middle America. She was kind of religious, but we didn't really talk about that, but we dangled it out there. She had this next door neighbor, Daniel, who was her friend. They wanted to go hiking one day, and the parents didn't let her go hiking. She got very upset that they didn't let her go hiking. So at around, I think we probably uploaded the video around 10 or 11 at night. A big part of it was, unlike television where you see the same show, 9 o'clock on Thursday night. So we're like, hey, if the character makes a video at night, we upload it at night. If the character makes a video in the morning, we upload it in the morning. So we uploaded a video, her face kind of right to the camera, called My Parents Suck, complaining about how she couldn't go hiking with Daniel. And the previous, I'd say 5 or 6 videos, like the first one got 1,000 views. The second one got 5,000. Then one got 30,000 views, like crazy. This video got 500,000 views in about 48 hours. And we watched it, and you can see in real time video the views. And we all were looking around each other and we're like, cable television shows do not get 500,000 views, the good ones. What did we just do?
We have a cable television show.
Yeah, what just happened here?
And at this point, had they had monetization yet?
So the first thing we did after coming out publicly was start to do some brand deals. So we did a deal with Hershey's for a gum, they have this gum called Icebreakers. So we did the first product placement ever, I pretty much think in a YouTube video or certainly in a video blog. Then Neutrogena approached us, and they wanted to do a whole big multi-month long campaign because they liked the audience that we had. Right. So we created a character that was a scientist that worked at Neutrogena that had some special serum that can kind of help cure these girls. So he became a recurring character, and he just wore a lab coat all the time, said Neutrogena. Yeah, and we called him Mr. Neutrogena, and it was perfect, and it was goofy. Then the interesting thing happened where YouTube was bought by Google right around this time. They reached out to us, realizing we're a lawyer and a doctor and kind of a little more sophisticated, flew us up to San Bruno to YouTube's offices, and they had conference rooms, and we sat in the Lonely Girl 15 conference room with the CEO and founders of YouTube, told them our story, who we were, and they kind of said, what do you need? And we said, money, right?
We need AdSense.
We need money. We need AdSense, but they didn't have AdSense.
Right.
So we literally, over a conference table, kind of sketched out what became the current day YouTube Partner Program, where we said, listen, we'll continue to keep uploading as many videos as we've been historically making. Give us, some tens of thousands of dollars per month to be able to cover our production costs and sign a year-long contract. And so they did that.
Our moment number 9 came in episode 4 of season 1 when we interviewed Amber Shaw. When Amber graduated college with a journalism degree, she had dreams of becoming the biggest entertainment reporter in the world. Instead, she drove for Postmates. At her personal low point, Amber turned to YouTube and started to film all of the things that made her life look great when it wasn't. Her breakout video, How to Make Cheap Clothes Look Expensive, increased her following from 1,000 followers to 100,000 followers in 2 days. Amber now has 3.5 million subscribers. Her interview is an inspirational story about following your dreams, which we get a glimpse of in this clip. Self-reflection time. Because you actually went to college. Do you consider yourself to be an influencer?
I would like to say no, because I don't particularly love the term. However, I once watched an interview with Oprah and Kourtney Kardashian, and she was like, you're famous, right? And Kourtney was like, I don't feel like I am. And it was like, huh? So I realize that you can showcase things and influence people in a way, quote unquote, but it's more like I just am trying to have fun with my own life and share that. So if people are intrigued to buy what I'm wearing because I'm wearing it.
Right. Where do you see your next couple years?
Hopefully doing I love making YouTube videos, don't get me wrong, but I want to do that and more. Like, I want to create a whole big empire. I want to start a clothing line. I want to do a shoe line, an eyelash line. Like, I want to kind of take over the world also. Like I kind of said, I want to be the next Ryan Seacrest, but maybe we're going to do it in a different way. We're going to take over the world, you know, on a different tour.
Second to last question. Knowing what you know now, if you could get a mulligan and go talk to your younger self, what would you tell yourself?
Oh my God. You know, I think about this all the time, and I often tell people, like, wow, what I would give to be able to go back and just say, like, it's going to be okay, or there's truly a lot of things that I would love to go back and say, but I think the biggest thing is if I could truly go back to, like, freshman year of college me with all these big dreams and whatever, like, my mental state was different at many different points of my life. So if I could go back to her then and just be like, honestly, never let this die. Like, keep that. The kind of childish, like, well, I can do anything I want to do. Like, what age is it that you always are encouraging kids? Like, yes, like, you can be anything you want to be. And then at a certain point, we stop telling them that. And we're like,
and then it's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, it's like, actually, no, you have to do this. And you have to do this, and this. It's like, no.
You can't play football. You can't go to space.
And it's not true. Like, you truly can do anything. And I wish I could tell her to never let that go, because when I did, truly a piece of me died with that. And because it was such a big part of my identity. And then realizing it now, like, to keep going at something even when everyone is telling you not to do it, or like it's never going to work, and then to have it work. I mean, I would bet my life on saying you can chase your dreams and make them come true if you really want it badly enough.
Our number 8 moment was in episode 9 of season 1, where we interviewed Brian Dunbar. Brian has worked on 10 different Super Bowl commercials, and we took a deep dive into one of his last ones involving Pierce Brosnan. I'm going to shift gears. Okay. You've been involved in how many Super Bowl commercials?
10.
And I looked it up, and the last Super Bowl had over 110 million viewers.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the most watched television show.
Right.
What kind of pressure does that put you under when you're producing a commercial?
A lot. First of all, because your clients are investing a huge amount of money. A 30-second Super Bowl ad costs about $5 million.
Now, that's just the airtime.
That's just the airtime. And the clients, that I've worked on for the past couple of years have been doing 60s. So that's $10 million for just the airtime. And then you have...
And that's for one commercial?
One commercial.
For 60 seconds?
60 seconds.
Okay, so a 60-second commercial, $10 million to air it.
To air it.
About how much does it cost to develop and shoot it?
Well, let's just talk first about the production cost. And, depending on, a lot of Super Bowl commercials feature celebrities or big special effects, millions of dollars to produce a Super Bowl commercial. Depending on the celebrity, it could be many millions of dollars. And then you have, of course, the ad agency's fees to help develop the commercial, and I would say all in, that's cost several million dollars too. So it's an expensive proposition to be in the Super Bowl.
And we'll come back to the benefits of this.
Okay.
But I want to talk to you about the last 3 Super Bowl commercials you worked on.
Okay.
It was 2015 with Pierce Brosnan, 2016 with Christopher Walken, and 2017 with Melissa McCarthy.
Right.
So, because I'm a lawyer and we're going to go in chronological order, let's start with the 2015 with Pierce Brosnan.
Sure.
What was the concept for that commercial?
Well, the last 3 commercials I worked on in the Super Bowl were all for Kia Motors, and Pierce Brosnan was selected to be in a commercial for the redesigned Sorento, which is their mid-sized SUV. And the new design was very sophisticated, but also quite capable as well. So the analogy was, it's kind of like a fit for an action adventure hero. And so we looked at different ones, and if you're trying to have that blend of sort of suave sophistication as well as capable as sort of a action adventure, Pierce Brosnan really fits the bill.
Kind of James Bond, art thief.
Yep, art thief, Remington Steele. He's got good comic sense as well. So anyway, the premise of the commercial was that he's his agent calls him in for a meeting. He's got a project to talk to him about. And of course, Pierce Brosnan thinks it's an action-adventure movie. And the agent is gently trying to explain it's a commercial for Kia, but every time he starts to describe it, Pierce Brosnan puts it in the context of an action-adventure movie. Things blowing up, snipers going 200 miles an hour in a car. Missile launchers. Yeah.
At the very end of the commercial, it's my favorite line. He's being pitched by his agent, and he says, "Can I keep the car?" Did he get to keep the car?
He did get to keep the car. He did. He had a Kia Sorento as it was part of the deal. And I think that's cool that it's authentic in the sense that he wanted the car as well. And hopefully has driving it around Malibu and once in a while.
Our number 7 moment was with Carter Shearer in episode 11 of season 1. Carter is an award-winning designer and YouTube influencer. He has 8.2 million subscribers and over 2 billion views on YouTube. His love of robotics and cars makes his videos truly unique, which he talks about in this clip. And then, in your teens, you started to design and create innovative walking devices?
Yeah.
What are those?
So this was, I think, probably about 2009, so I'm in high school freshman year. I get on YouTube. I remember even to this day, and if you look at my saved history from back in 2009, I have these videos. So I would scour the internet for all these mechanical linkages is what they're called, where you have different bars connected together, and then one spins around and you get other movements out of so you start with a rotary input like a bicycle pedal, but then you can use linkages to create different outputs. And I found this one Dutch creator, Theo Jansen. He made this rotary mechanism that mimics a leg movement. So he has these creatures that can walk. And when I saw that, I was blown away. I thought that was so interesting. And so I just spent hours and hours scouring the internet looking for all this stuff I can find. And there wasn't a lot of stuff. You had to go really deep into YouTube. And so I think that's also part of why I understand YouTube so well, because I spent so much time kind of almost reverse engineering at the time trying to find content. And so now I understand it better. And so I got obsessed with designing these legs, these mechanical legs. And so I made my first one maybe my freshman or sophomore year.
And what did it do?
You could sit on it and you spin it around, and there's 2 legs out front that walk and pull you across the ground, kind of like a very spider-like. So that was the first one. The next one I made, I wanted to mimic humans. So I remember measuring my sister, how long her hip to her knee, and then her knee to her foot.
Was she a willing participant in this?
Yeah, and so then I would use those measurements and try to design the ratios and figure out how to make it to make the movement work. And by changing the lengths of each of the linkages in there, you get a different effect. And so spent many times, and I would start with a quick wood prototype, put it together, and then make a metal one, and so on and so forth, and just. And each one of these things would take hundreds of hours to develop. And then I eventually made this human walking machine, and which was all welded, creation with the gears and very complicated. I had a single motor that powered 4 legs that walked, from a drill. I used an old drill, and so I had the drill input, and I had to gear it down, and then I had a drive shaft, and then I had to have coupling joints that go out to 90-degree gearboxes, then gear it down again. That goes into linkages for all 4 legs. So just an absolute pretty impressive mechanical feat, especially for my age. And then I entered that into engineering competition, and then I won the regional, and I went on to states and won the states. And then there's a global competition where there's over 25 countries around the world that fly in to compete, and I won that competition as well.
Coming in at number 6 is our interview with Ricky Williams in episode 4 of season 3. Ricky is a Renaissance man and multifaceted influencer. He is a Heisman Trophy winner and was an elite professional athlete in the NFL. Ricky has a wide-ranging curiosity that has led him to study herbal medicine and astrology, which we hear about in this clip. I want to take you back to the astrology.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you before we started, I didn't know much about it until I started to prepare for this interview. And now it's just kind of an interesting topic.
Right.
It's a real interesting topic.
Yeah.
So you do readings.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard one of the first rules that you have is no judgment.
Well, yeah, that's a rule I try to enforce on a daily basis in my life. Because to me, when if you start judging things, I think you get lost. And for me, when I talk about astrology, I talk about the zodiac or the chart as a circle, and the circle as a symbol of wholeness. And in wholeness, everything has a place. And so a lot of what I do is helping people understand themselves and understand what place or what part the different drives or instincts that they have, what part they all play in the whole of their life.
And I've heard that you talk about helping people recognize the energy in their lives, and that you can help them understand the past by seeing what was actually there as opposed to what you remember.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. And I think one of the main problems or questions in science right now is how do we define what a fact is? And quantum physics is now showing that that's blurry now, because just by observing an experiment, you alter the experiment. And my sense of what a chart can represent is a form of objectivity. An example is if something's going on in my life and I feel baffled by it, or I'm not sure what direction to go, I'll look at the chart and I'll look for symbols that identify to me that, for instance, we talked about the planet Mars, right? When Swami Sita asked where my Mars was.
Yeah, where is your Mars?
My Mars is in Aries, which is interesting. So Mars in a chart points to someone's aggressivity, their drive, right? And quite obviously, we watch TV and we see violence and it's a negative thing. But there's certain places we can go and find violence and it's considered a positive thing. In war, in athletics and sports.
Football.
Yeah, in football. That realizing that in life we're going to face stressful situations that are going to require us to stick up for ourselves. And sometimes in the process, other people are going to get hurt. This is a drive. This is an issue that we all have. A universal, Carl Jung called it an archetype, a universal energy that we all have to figure out and engage with in our lives. And so I realized if I'm in a situation where I'm feeling victimized, then I look to Mars and I see, okay, Mars is being triggered by something. So it's telling me that this is a process that I need to work on, is that I need to find a way to assert myself and defend what's important to me. And if I try to turn down this challenge, negativity will befall me. I have a perfect example. Perfect example. So 2007, I get reinstated to come back to the NFL. And I get reinstated right before the 10th week of the season. And so I practiced that whole week, and I'm with the Dolphins, and we're playing the Steelers on Monday Night Football. And I'm already thinking, I've only practiced a week where everyone else on the field has been here 10 weeks plus 6 weeks of training camp. So I'm far behind. And as we're flying into Pittsburgh, it's pouring down rain, okay? We get there, the next day we go to the football field, and there's about 2 inches of water sitting on top of the field. And I go out there for warm-ups, and no one can warm up because the field is so bad. And I'm telling myself, I probably should not be playing in this game. It doesn't seem like it's a good idea. But my whole thing in my life is to be tough and always try to fight through. And so I had this inner struggle. A part of me was saying, go tell the coach that you're not going to play because it's not safe for you to play out there. Yeah. But part of me said, no, I have to be tough. Okay. And so I chickened out.
Who's the coach at the time?
It's Cam Cameron.
Okay.
He was only there for a year. And there was more stress because they hadn't won a game. They were 0-9 at this point. And so they were hoping that I would help them win. And so I chickened out. I wasn't able to go up to him and say, I'm not going to play. First play of the second quarter, I get hit. The ball goes on the ground, and I'm pushing myself up to get the ball, and someone jumps on my back, and I tear my pec. Ooh. Okay? Tear my pec right off, and I'm done for the whole season. Right? And you'll see this constantly in clients' lives. Whenever they come up with in a Mars situation, energy where they have to display some kind of courage, whether that's inner courage or outer courage, and they succeed, right? There's usually the spoils of war. But if they chicken out and they don't, then the fierce Mars energy comes at them from a different way that's out of their control. And in my example, tearing my pec. And I looked in my chart. There Mars was right on top of my moon in the area of profession, in the sign of Cancer. And interesting coincidence, cancer rules the chest, right? And so I had an example of stick up for myself and take care of myself.
Right.
At work, I didn't, and I got hurt.
Our number 5 moment came in episode 3 of season 1 in our interview with Alicia Marie. Alicia has 8.2 million YouTube subscribers and 3.5 million Instagram followers. Alicia has been described as the hardest working influencer on YouTube. We talked about the 4 phases of her career, from getting started to a workaholic phase, to burnout to a rejuvenation phase. And since this interview, Alicia has also started an apparel brand, Parallel Apparel. Completely shifting gears.
Okay.
What is your definition of an influencer?
Ooh. Well, lately I've tried to change my vocabulary and stop saying YouTuber because I realized, no, I'm an influencer, and
You forget your Twitter follow.
I forget
how did you
Twitter.
grow Twitter that much?
Twitter's an interesting one.
And I'll come back to your definition of an influencer.
Yeah. Okay. Definition of an influencer, I would say anyone who just, it's so cliche, influences, like whether you have a blog or even a Facebook, or it's your, I would say your full-time job of just doing social media and all of that stuff.
When did you first start to consider yourself an influencer?
Genuinely, I don't think that long ago. And that's when I started trying to change my vocabulary of like, no, like I can use YouTube, but that's limiting me to one platform. And like, I'm an influencer, and, even starting a podcast or something, like that's not YouTube. And I think it's more respected in the traditional media Hollywood sense too, of like when you just say YouTuber, like how many headlines are there with like horrible things with YouTubers? You know what I mean?
Right.
So to say like, no, like even blogger sounds more professional, which is funny because it's still like, it's like, oh, I'm a blogger. Like there's just this stigma, but yeah, I think anyone could be an influencer. It's just devoting your time to it.
Have you had an I've made it moment?
When I hit 100,000 subscribers.
So that was it for you?
That I like cried. I have a vlog. I like cried. My family got me a cake. Like literally it was such a, but back then 100,000 was like the million now. Because it just was so not saturated like it is now. Like hitting 1 million now, honestly, sadly, isn't as impressive anymore because the bar just keeps going higher and higher. But back then, like I hit 100,000 and I was I was just like, it was everything.
You've talked about advice on if you were growing a YouTube channel. What's your just general advice of somebody that wants to get into this space?
Ooh.
On managing your life, on managing who you are, while you're still being that out there.
I think definitely having, and it's funny, it's so cliche, I've heard this so many times, but like it didn't click to me, but just having a support group around you, whether it's friends, family, of people who can kind of keep you in check and that are just going to be so honest and genuine with you. Like there's so many times I see people and they're in friend groups and it's just like toxic because that they're just like, it's all superficial and like, that they really don't have each other's backs. And right. When I think of the people who are in my life right now, I'm just like blown away because genuinely all of them care about me so much and they know the real me. And I think that's the biggest thing of just have a good support group, have like balance to your life. Like it's always just going to be the next thing. Like the vlogs are just going to have to get crazier and crazier if you set that precedent and like, yeah.
So you've been on YouTube 10 years. If you could go back to your 10-year younger
oh my God.
self,
oh my
what
God.
would you tell
I would
yourself?
love that. I would tell myself to not care about what people think, to just do whatever I want to do because I am talented in it. And I think I really discovered along the journey of like my talents and like now I can sit here like so confidently and say like I'm meant to be a creative director, where back then I was just like, oh, like maybe people are gonna think this, or like I don't know, I'm like not confident in myself, or now I'm just like so confident. And YouTube's definitely brought that confidence. Going back to being an introvert, a lot of people that from my past at different times have just said, you out of all people, like you were so shy. But it's kind of funny now being in this space, a lot of influencers are introverts and are shy, and it's so funny.
You see that a lot with television actors.
Yeah, everything in entertainment, it's so funny. I mean, obviously there's the other, but it's so funny.
Number 4 on our countdown is episode 1 of season 2, when we interviewed Rodney Farron. Rodney is a former CIA analyst. While in the CIA, he was a member of the president's daily briefing team and CIA Director George Tenen's personal briefer. After leaving the CIA, Rodney became the very first Director of Threat and Violence Assessment for the Walt Disney Company. Rodney is currently a partner in the Crumpton Group and president of Aardwolf Creative, a firm developing CIA-themed dramas for TV and movies. In this clip, he shares his path to the CIA. So, what year did you graduate from Georgetown?
I finished in 1992.
What year did you start at the CIA?
I started in 1991.
Tell me about that story. How did you go from Georgetown while you're still a student to the CIA?
Well, I recruited myself, basically. And the situation was I went to Georgetown thinking that I would be tapped on the shoulder by some spotter, right, who's acting as a professor at the university. Much like you hear about MI6, British intelligence officer candidates being tapped on the shoulder by their dons at Cambridge or Oxford or whatnot. And by the time my sophomore year rolled around, I realized no one had tapped me on the shoulder yet. So I said, you know what, I'm just gonna call, and they've got to have a main number and the phone number.
Did you call? Okay, I want to call the CIA. Where do you get the number?
Well, there was a thing called a phone book back in the day. And in the phone book...
To our younger listeners, explain a phone book.
It is before the internet, where you can just Google for everything. It was a directory, basically a thick book which had names and phone numbers of people who wanted to be in there. And there was a little section in blue that was for government offices. And lo and behold, there it was, a nondescript entry, Central Intelligence Agency, 703-482-1100.
And is that still the number?
It's still the number. I'll never forget.
I know what I'm going to do when I'm done here. So you called.
I called, right. And then I just asked for personnel, and to my surprise and delight, they sent me on to their human resources department, where I then said, I described who I was. I'm a student at Georgetown University. I was wondering if you had student programs or anything available for someone like me, and I heard a sigh at the other end. I didn't know how many.
So you had not been the first call.
I don't think I was, or maybe they were expecting somebody else, but they very gruffly asked where I went to college and what was my GPA and what was my major and other things like that, and then they said that we'll send you an application in the mail. And the next day I got this thick manila folder in the mail, which described a lot of the programs that were out there, also a basic application for CIA.
And this was your junior year?
This was my junior year, the beginning of my junior year. That's right. And to my, again, great delight, they did have programs for students like me to join the agency as a full staffer with the same security clearances that every other analyst would get there.
Coming in at number 3 of our best moments of the last 100 episodes is our interview with Will Hurd on episode 9 of season 2. Will is the former representative for Texas's 23rd Congressional District and has been described by Politico as one of the leading voices on technology in Congress. Prior to running for public office, Will was an undercover agent in the CIA, serving in India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. The congressman sat down with us to discuss how social media is affecting both the intelligence community and the government generally. You mentioned it earlier, but social media was just starting at the time. Were you, just being in the CIA, are you allowed to be on social media?
Now you are. And now if you're not, it would be weird, right? So,
well, that's the problem. Is somebody that's not on social media is like, What's
Yeah.
up?
So in Facebook, I started in 2006, right? Twitter was 2009. And I left, my last day was in August of 2009. And at that point, I think we weren't allowed to be on social media, but it was still where I forget when Facebook opened up to people that weren't in colleges, right? You had to have a college
email.
you had to have a .edu email in order to do this, right? And so it was fine. It was still not as ubiquitous as it is now. But now you have to, and look, that creates, so when you have this access to social media, people can learn more about you, and so having to protect yourself, having to make sure that your social media looks like, you know, whatever your cover is, a regular person,
somebody that works for the state department,
absolutely is important. But also, it gives you opportunities, right? Because I wish the people that I was trying to recruit, if I had access to all their social media and see what they were doing and what they were liking, like what they like to do, right? That it increases your surface area of attack defensively, but also on offense. And look, in one operation, I knew a guy went to this one store, usually at the same time every day, at the same time, same day. And so because I wanted to meet him, guess what I would do? You'd be at the store at the same time. I'd be at that store at the same time every day. And so that's what we call a bump, where you go and you make contact with someone for the first time in order to start developing a relationship. And, you know, if with social media, my ability to figure out where people go and to increase, you know, my chances of bumping into them would increase significantly.
Our number 2 moment came in episode 6 of season 4, where we interviewed Garrett Classy. Garrett is the interim athletic director for the University of Nebraska. Garrett has been intimately involved in implementing the Ready Now program, which helps student athletes craft and manage their personal brands on social media. It is the first ever NCAA program to embrace social media and incorporate the development of branding into the life skills training and support that students receive. Garrett shared his thoughts on this new approach to training college athletes, specifically how instead of telling students what not to do, they are training them on best practices, which are applicable to all influencers.
So I saw a quote from Scott Frost, Nebraska's head football coach, where he said, "We believe social media is the core of the next frontier for player development," which is the perfect transition into the Ready Now program. So I want to set the scene, and my listeners have heard me talk about this before, but I want to, in case this is a new thing to the podcast. First, is there a rule at the University of Nebraska that would preclude a non-athlete from monetizing social media?
A non-athlete, no. Any student in America outside of student athletes, in my understanding, is able to monetize their social media.
Right. But the NCAA, on the other hand, at current at least, athletes may not monetize their social media.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, it looks like that's going to change, and you hinted at it, and we'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. According to a Nebraska press release, the program, the Ready Now program, provides education and assessment tools they need to navigate the complexities of social media and maximize their brand in the digital world. So let's unpack that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the Ready Now? And you know, just an overview. What is the Ready Now program?
Yeah, as you mentioned, John, it's the 2 pillars of assessment and education. And so first, Open Doors went through all of our student athletes' social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and really looked at how they conduct themselves. How do they make themselves look better on social media? And it went as deep, and they all got letter grades, A, B, C, D, F, on how they were currently using their social media. And it looked at everything from what's your username? You know, if a student athlete has a username of Dave Too Cool versus my name is Dave Robinson, that makes you harder to find by the public. So how do you gain followers if you're impossible to find by doing a basic search? It looks at what kind of content that you put on social media. When do you put it on social media? And then the education piece is after they received their grade, they each went through an educational session on when you should be posting, what you should be posting, how do you get more followers? How do you get not just more followers, more engagement when you post? Because that's the key, not just posting nonsense if you post the most items doesn't mean you get the most clicks. You got to have smart content. And so to help our student athletes navigate that system has been incredibly helpful. And we want to make sure they're prepared if name, image, and likeness does start beginning on August 1st.
Well, even if it doesn't start, once they graduate, it's still going to be part of their DNA almost at this point.
Absolutely. And every student in America, every kid in America, I guess, from age 17 to 21, they're on social media, so they should know best practices and they should know the impact, good and bad.
Well, I got to correct you there. It's probably like 5 years old and up.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. But when it pertains to our college students,
right.
And I've been in college athletics almost 25 years. The old school way of educating student athletes on social media was your compliance staff going in, talking to every team, saying, you should not be posting after this hour, and you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing that. And it was what you weren't supposed to do. Now it's more like education on how you're supposed to post and where do you post, how do you post. And so now we're enabling you with the tools to be successful in social media rather than scaring you on the bad thing that's going to happen if you don't do it right.
And number one, our top moment from the last 100 episodes of the Creative Influencer Podcast was our interview with Beto O'Rourke on episode 9 of season 4. Beto represented Texas's 16th Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives from 2013 to 2019. Beto came to national political prominence during his 2018 campaign for U.S. Senate, which he narrowly lost to Republican incumbent Ted Cruz, but also set a new standard in politics for his grassroots use of social media during his campaign. After seeking the 2020 Democratic nomination for U.S. President, Beto created Powered by People, an organization with the mission to reach eligible Texas voters to register, vote, and volunteer. Beto has been described as understanding how to use social media as an influencer and not as a politician. In our interview, Beto shared his thoughts on the positive effect of social media, how it can be used for powerful purposes such as facilitating help, assistance, and organizing.
There was a comment I read that you understand, talking to you, Beto, understand how to use social media as an influencer and not as a politician. What is it that you do differently from some of your colleagues?
It's so interesting that we're talking about this right now because you may feel the same way. I go through phases where I want nothing to do with social media. It can be so superficial, so toxic, so inimical to a deeper understanding of an issue or a deeper connection that you could make with somebody. And it's a platform where the people are the product that drives the profits of these companies who seem to have an incentive to pit us against each other or to bring out the worst impulses or to drive the most sensational stories. But then we have a day like we did yesterday. I mentioned Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez raising all this money online for Texas. We, through our group Powered by People, organized thousands of volunteers to make hundreds of thousands of wellness check-in phone calls to senior citizens across Texas to connect them with water or food or these warming centers that they can go to, or transportation for those who are homebound right now. And it makes me realize that's a platform that can do a hell of a lot of good. And so, John, I don't have anybody who, does social media for me. So if for those who follow me, you'll see me just drop out for in some cases, weeks on end, where I just, don't know what I can add to the conversation that's going on or whether I want to add to it at all. And then you see me, yesterday, I'm on that all day because I'm tapping into the power to connect with people who want to do good. And so that's a great lesson for me, at least, that it's not as simple as saying, social media is bad or social media is great. It's really complex, and it can be used for very evil ends. See Donald Trump. It can be used for powerfully positive purposes, as we just saw in the way that people rallied around and for the people of Texas yesterday. So, I mean, my conception of social media is still forming right now. And after yesterday, and again, seeing all the good that's coming into Texas today, I'm really grateful that it's out there, and I'm grateful it can facilitate this kind of help and assistance and organizing.
Which is a perfect transition to, in 2017, excuse me, you took a road trip. It's been dubbed the bipartisan road trip with Will Hurd. How did that come about?
It's so interesting. Will, who I knew but didn't know well, we were elected in different classes. I was elected first in 2012. I think he was elected in 2016. We would say hello to each other on the floor of the House. Maybe had some superficial conversations. I was in San Antonio, which was part of his district, as a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, visiting a VA hospital and some veterans clinics, and then actually meeting with this extraordinary veterans support group, a group of Vietnam era veterans who were working in group therapy to address long-standing issues resulting from their service to country, post-traumatic stress disorder and some of the effects lingering still from traumatic brain injury, for example. And Will was there with me. And even though he wasn't on the Veterans Affairs Committee, he wanted to be in those meetings. And so I just really became so impressed by him and just genuinely liked him and the fact that he took his job so seriously. And anyhow, we're taking the elevator down in the VA hospital, and both of us get these text messages from our teams back in DC saying that our flights had been canceled because there was this surprise snowstorm in March of 2017 that had grounded all air traffic, and we weren't going to be able to get back to the Capitol in time to vote that week. And I turned to Will and I said, "Hey, you want to drive back there with me?" Kind of as a joke, and maybe somewhat seriously, but thinking there's no way he's going to take me up on it. And he did. He said, "You know what? Let's do it." And we both left in our own cars. And then I called him, or he called me. I can't remember. He might remember. And we kind of checked in on each other to see if we were serious, and we were. And so we started working on it and rented literally the last available car in the rental car center in San Antonio because it was spring break. They had all been checked out, and it was a Chevy Impala. I don't know what vintage, but it was the last one on the lot for a reason. And we drove that thing across the country with just a very brief stop in Tennessee from San Antonio to DC. And we live streamed it almost the entire journey. In fact, I think the entire journey. And so it is in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest uninterrupted bipartisan congressional road trip. And maybe somebody has since broken that record, but it was great. And what was wonderful was getting to know Will so well. But what was just as powerful was connecting with all these people who participated in the live stream, who were asking us questions, who were checking in on us, who told us to go to Gibson's Donuts in Memphis, Tennessee, which is one of the best donuts I've ever tasted. It was really amazing. And again, John, that's probably another positive example of social media and some good that it can be put to. And we very often focus on the bad things that are going on there. But that is a great memory for me.
That's it for this time. If you enjoyed our podcast, please write a review on iTunes and tell your friends to subscribe. If you have any questions about influencers or suggestions for future episodes, email them to John at Pfeiffer@pfeifferlaw.com. Thank you for listening.